I'll
Different
I'll
subject.
gladly listen to that story. All right, so you found my live stream. Are you a first-time viewer? What happened here?
No, I mean I've seen. I will take a look at anybody on the extreme left, on the extreme right,
And
essentially
you
extreme
consider me
points of
on the
view.
extreme left?
You are on the extreme
Okay.
left, isn't that correct?
I would say I'm very far to the left, but I don't know if I would say I'm extreme.
Um, you classify yourself however your little heart desires.
I will do that.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, so you take a look at extreme left YouTubers and
Yeah,
you want to hear what they got to say. So you came into the stream. I was spewing outrageous lies like Baphomet themselves. Now, what
did you say outrageous lies?
I'm assuming you're
I'm
that's
not.
your
No, no,
claim?
no, 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 no.
Okay.
First of all, your point of view is your own. I have no
Right?
issue with it. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion.
Okay.
Uh, um, and what you were saying though about the Israel Palestine with the Judaism and all the other stuff, and it's like, look, let me just say this: I'm not a religious person. I never have been.
Okay.
But I mean, I have studied Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, whatever, whatever. I do think you've got this one wrong.
Okay.
And so you can, like you're mentioning, the Israel Palestine is not religion. Israel Palestine has to do with fighting over a land for the most part. Yeah.
Land that both claim that they
Mm-hmm.
deserve,
Mm-hmm.
and the Jewish people, to my understanding, in that conflict,
Mm-hmm.
were put there and feel that they're entitled to that specific land instead of being able to share, which is something that I feel like is an option. Now, again, I'm young. I haven't studied
Okay.
extensively. I don't live there. I've never been there. But the idea to me that people are willing to wage war over Holy Land, I find that to be quite problematic.
Okay. You have to understand the history of what happened there.
Right?
You did have your extreme right wingers, no question about it. As a matter of fact, the roots of Zionism was actually based on more of an atheist or an atheist agnostic, whatever, who saw that there were issues in Europe and that the Jews needed their own land. That started in the late 1800s.
Absolutely.
If you fast forward to World War One, it got transferred from the Ottomans over to the Brits. The Brits double crossed everybody, which sort of caused this issue. But if you're going to tell me that the Palestinians were choir boys, it tells me you really don't know what the hell was going
Well,
on there.
I'm not claiming that they're choir boys.
Anything but. I mean, look, the Grand Mufti was best friends with Adolf Hitler. And if you think that a Jew in 1945 is not going to get a little sensitive to that, trust me, they did. And there were atrocities committed on both sides. If you take a look at the amount of people that have actually died there, and by the way, you can confirm anything I'm saying here. You have had since 1947, I believe 80,000 Palestinians have died. Approximately 40,000 Jews during that same period have died. But in that region of the world, Egypt killed more Palestinians than Israel. Syria killed more Palestinians than Israel.
Well, if you want to
Yeah.
talk about this as if it's like a leaderboard, I'm
No, I'm
okay
not
with
talking
that.
like a leaderboard. I'm simply saying
Right.
it just sort of seems. Here is the biggest issue that I have, and this is where I think it becomes it's not exactly being looked in a fair way. I mean, do you know why that wall was built in Jerusalem?
I don't.
Okay, in the 1990s, and by the way, once again, I'm not going to say that either side were choir boys. Obviously, they
Right?
weren't. But in the 1990s, you had Palestinians that were crossing over into Jerusalem and blowing up buses, blowing up pizza places, and then going home and celebrating. And, what that essentially did was that moved uh, the mood of the country further to the right,
Right.
which then said, we want this wall up, and essentially, screw it, we're going to do whatever we can to save our people. And what that wall ultimately wound up doing was checkmating the Palestinians, where now there's very little they can do. If you look at what the deal that was offered to them in 2000 between Ehud Barak and Arafat, it was about 90, I'm going to say 96, 97% of the West Bank. Don't hold me to it. I think I'm correct with that.
Okay.
And the only thing that came back from that was more suicide bombers. So that swung the country to the right, and then 2007, I think a better deal was offered. Palestinians didn't respond. And so you just swung the country goes further and further to the right. But I could
Well,
tell you,
my
yeah.
just so we understand here, my
Mm-hmm.
original claim is that people of all faiths would commit extremist acts in adherence to that faith.
Agreed.
So would you say that Jewish people like are not doing that, or they're just doing that less, or it's just, are you trying to shed light on why they're doing that in that location?
Here is the thing. If you were going to let me go into scripture with you right now. If you
Okay.
were going to go into the Torah, Tanakh, Old Testament, whichever phrase you want to use, there is a lot of hardcore stuff that's pretty nasty there. No
Right.
question about it.
I remember trying to read the Bible when I was a kid, and it was very hard to read.
Were you raised Christian, Jewish? I
I
mean,
was raised mostly secular, but with
okay,
like the kind of like, like
okay,
the secular Christian kind of thing. It's like, yeah, this is what we believe. Here's the book, but we're not really going to shove it down your throat.
gotcha. So you were on the Protestant. Okay, cool. If you look at this stuff, yeah, there is a lot of hardcore stuff in there. I mean, look, if you want to take traditional Judaism, picking up sticks on the Sabbath means I should stone your ass to death. The question is, do you see many people that are doing it? If you want to take a look at atrocities committed, okay, I mean, in Israel, I think the last time they had I don't know if you want to call him a suicide, but somebody that massacred a lot of Muslims. I think his name was Baruch Goldstein. This was 1994. He murdered like 35 of them in Hebron. It was, obviously an atrocious offensive act. But you have to go back to 1994, where something like that was done.
Well, I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
claiming it's a pandemic of
Mm-hmm.
Jewish extremism. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying, in my comments were mostly just about how religion can be utilized to convince people that what they're doing is righteous. In the same way that QAnon can weaponize like pedophilia rings to convince people, oh yeah, it's okay to take a gun and go to a pizza parlor and try to kill people in order to save the children. It's
Yeah,
this
but those,
idea that you're believing in some fantastical narrative, and that motivates you to perform something that hurts other people.
yeah, but you got whack jobs in every flavor. I mean,
Oh, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, I don't know much about QAnon. I mean, I've heard this with the pedophilia ring, and I haven't done much homework on this. I couldn't.
It's a big rabbit hole, so don't worry about it.
Okay, all right. This is cool. This is cool.
But yeah, I mean,
But
like my
mm,
position is just in general that violence is a bad thing. And I wasn't trying to highlight,
mhm,
right, that like Jewish people are exceptionally violent. That wasn't my point. I was
mhm.
just pointing out that there are instances of people utilizing the Jewish faith in order to weaponize their extremist ideologies. Um, that's just, I don't know. I feel, as far as I'm concerned, that's a fact. And it could be more complicated, right? The idea of there being like a war waged on Holy Land over the course of nearly a century now, like that we've been dealing with that conflict, right? Yes, there's two, participants in that conflict or more, right?
Oh no,
It,
there's more.
well, yeah, but
There's more. I mean,
okay.
I would even say if you've ever been, oh, no, you haven't been there.
I've never left the United States.
You've got that one area that is. These are insane people, and I don't know who is more insane, whether it's and I'm talking about just the religious fanatics, because I can tell you the Christian Zionists are out of their minds.
In
Um,
this country, I know Christian Zionists are
oh yeah,
absolutely bizarre. They're
oh yeah,
bonkers.
oh yeah, they're nuts. Because I mean, the Christian Zionists need the Jews to rebuild the temple so Jesus can come back to then, to either get the Jews to convert or kill them. The Jews need to rebuild the temple in order to get their Messiah to come to show everybody else that they're wrong. And I'm not really sure what the Muslims need it for, but I'm sure it's for just as good of a reason. Um, but you could cut the tension with a knife. I mean, it's bad over there.
I
It's
would
bad.
imagine so.
Yeah, yeah. Entertaining as hell, but it's bad. But I would almost have to say, let me just say, you know about the 6 Day War.
I've heard of it, but I don't know
Okay,
details.
6 Day War was a very, I mean, they should have lost, but they wound up winning. A lot of Christian Zionists saw this as a sign of, proof of the Bible, whatever. And there was some Australian minister, I think in 68 or 69, that then tried to burn the mosque down so this way they could rebuild the temple so Jesus can come back. These are some pretty fanatic people. They're fun guys, but I mean, from a distance.
Right?
But I mean, all of that. The one thing is, and I understand this. I also look at the numbers. The abstract numbers. You have about 2.5 billion Christians of all different flavors in the world. You've got between 1.6 to 1.8 million Muslims. There's only 15 million Jews.
Are you
They're
talking
in the
about billion?
15 million, 0.2%.
Well, you said 1.8 million Muslims.
1.8, 1.6 to 1.8. I'm not really sure. I know it's about 2.5 million
Are we talking
Christians.
about just in the region or?
No, I'm talking worldwide.
Okay.
Worldwide, I'm just saying. And there's 15 million Jews. I mean, they are a very small percentage of the population, and they've had a lot of shit to deal with over the, over the centuries.
Jewish people, without a doubt,
Yeah,
have one of the most troubled histories as far as any
yeah.
groups in this country, and I don't disagree with the idea that they're struggling. I'm again, my statement was purely just some people will utilize that faith in order to do bad things. I don't know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I could buy that.
Okay.
I
Thank
could buy
you.
that.
Thank you for buying it.
Yeah, very, very welcome.
I appreciate that you're supporting small businesses such as my own.
No, I'm just curious. You lived in the Northeast for a period of time. Where were you at? Where were you at? What state?
I grew up in New Jersey,
Okay,
and I lived there until I was 18.
okay. And were you in the western or the eastern part of North Carolina?
I am right on the shore.
Ah, okay. My wife's from North Carolina. I actually know the
Interesting.
state quite well. And my mother-in-law lived in Asheville for a while and
Okay.
did business in Charlotte.
Okay.
Interesting state. Big fan of the
Very
barbecue
interesting.
down there. Pardon?
Very interesting. I can assure that. It's definitely a bit of a culture shock, I can tell you.
Have you been to South Carolina yet?
Yes. It's
Those
a
are
lot
interesting.
more of a culture shock down there, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. That I would agree with. Myrtle Beach, I could take. The rest of the state, you can keep.
I don't want it. I'm afraid you got it.
What made you decide to move down there?
Just family reasons. I was not in the driver's seat of that decision.
Gotcha, gotcha. If you ever have you been to Asheville?
Not yet.
You would. Were you ever in Woodstock when you were in the Northeast?
No.
Okay, consider Asheville like the southern version of Woodstock. Very
I've heard
liberal
it's very
politics.
nice there.
It's gorgeous. My mother-in-law lived there. I mean, and it is very very artistic. Very very a lot of good restaurants. A lot of creativity, but you've got that one sea of blue surrounded by the red. Just
Yeah, I live in a relatively red location myself. I get a lot of the people. I've seen people with Trump flags on their cars. You know, it's hell down here. It's not great. Um,
Do you
yeah,
think that Trump is going? You think that Biden is going to win North Carolina? Because I can't
I
see
think
it.
Biden will win North Carolina.
I mean, I know you're a purple state, but I can't. I can't see that. I don't buy these polls. The polls don't make any sense to me.
Well, when you look at the polls, Roy Cooper is up. He's the governor candidate for the
Yeah.
Democrats. He's up like I think 5 points in like minimum
Right.
in the polling. Cal Cunningham, I think he's tied,
Hmm.
but he's mostly up. I'm gonna look at the polls here. So Biden being close to a tie, I do think that the other races kind of give us some insight
Hmm.
on that in a way, because it lets us know that there is this energy that's against Republicans, and
Right.
Trump. Like if someone is willing to vote against Tom Tillis and Dan
Hmm.
Forest, but not against Donald Trump, it is a lot easier to make them go for Biden than it is to convince them to go for Donald Trump at that point. Like I don't know. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. I do think Biden will win. I don't think it'll be a landslide. I got the polls up here. Biden is +6 and +8 in the most recent.
This is in
Uh,
North Carolina.
this is in North Carolina, yes.
Yeah. You see that cannot be right.
Cunningham is +1 in the most recent poll, and that's after this recent sex scandal. So that does sound a bit right. That's definitely a worrisome drop. He was +6 before that. Cooper, on the other hand, is +4, +7,
Cooper is a
+15.
Democrat, right?
Yes, Roy Cooper is the governor.
But he's a conservative Democrat. He's conservative. I don't. He's not a
He's
liberal.
he's he's a typical Democrat in the same way that like Virginia's governor is a typical Democrat.
Okay.
Like they're relatively conservative. They err on the side of caution way more than they should, but they got a
Hmm.
D next to their name, so they kind of believe in science a little bit, a little bit.
But he's not an Andrew Cuomo kind of Democrat.
No,
Okay. Okay. Just
I
want to
would
make
say he's more to the right than that.
right. I think you're right. The reason I've got an issue with these polls, if these are to be believed, you're essentially saying that if I'm reading this, that you're talking about a landslide of LBJ Goldwater, Mondale, Reagan. I just can't see it.
Well, like overall throughout the country,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
think it's
can't see
very
it.
likely that Biden will get something like 360 electoral votes. I think that's very likely.
There's three states that I'm looking at, and it's going to be a nightmare. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 77,000 votes that if they flipped in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, Hillary would be president.
Yes.
Right? It's something like that. Those are the states that I'm really only would be that I know going to be concentrated on, and it's going to be a knockdown drag out. I just,
Well, Biden is up 10 points in Wisconsin.
but yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I have a tough time buying that. I mean, look, could I be wrong? I'm not a poll taker. I'm not a poll watcher. But what I look at, I don't look at the polls so much. I look at the betting lines, and you can actually look at the betting lines out of England, and they're showing that Biden is a slight favorite right now. I think.
Now, do the betting lines take is that who's going to win the Democrat like the Democratic like the not the party but the small d Democratic vote, or who is going to be president in 2021?
Who would be president? And
Because that I think a lot of people are betting on the fact that Trump will cheat if that's the case. Which
there,
he has signaled very heavily that he's stacking the courts. He's going to be pursuing legal battles on mail-in ballots. There's a very high likelihood that we're going to get a 2000 scenario here.
um, 2000 was, yeah. You don't remember 2000? 2000 was an interesting situation. Actually, I blame the Democrats in 2000.
I blame the Republicans for cheating and the Democrats for letting them cheat,
You
which has
talking
been
about
my
in
consistent.
2000?
Yes.
No, no,
No?
no. Look, I could tell you, and I remember that. I remember this well. You could say I've got
Okay.
a few years on you. Um,
Right? You seem a little older.
a
No
smidgen,
offense.
none taken.
Okay.
My mother, my aunt lived down in southern Florida at that time, and I remember waking up the next day like nobody really knew, but we knew Florida was in the center of it. My aunt lived in Delray Beach, which is in Broward, and
Right.
she was confused of that butterfly ballot. Now, if you're going to ask me the question, did, did more people in Florida intend to vote for Gore that day? I'd say without a shadow of a doubt, yes, they did. No question about it. However, between that butterfly ballot and some other stuff that went on, those votes never got in.
Well, that's
And
my point. Is Democrats let that happen, right?
Democrats screwed up because they wanted to cherry pick 4 counties as
And I
opposed to the
think
whole
that's a
state.
huge mistake. I
Huge
think that that
mistake.
was
That
a
cost them.
giant compromise that they made to try to like, oh yeah, we don't want to recount the whole state. Look at us. Let's just but that made them look self-centered. That made them look selfish
Oh
and
yeah,
it gave away the game. Like if they were to have just played aloof and saying like we just want to do democracy, recount the whole state, that would have been a lot better of a situation, I feel.
agreed. What their intent was, because I read about this afterwards. What their intent was, if they were able to flip it where Gore was slightly ahead, then obviously it's going to be a new game. But they never ever got to that point. I think they were the closest they got was 359 down. But then it was different and it was a nightmare down there. But again, if you're asking me, did more people intend to vote for Gore? The answer is yes, because I could tell you this. I don't know what you know about Pat Buchanan.
Not much.
Just take my word for it. You were not going to get several thousand Jews in Broward County to vote for Pat Buchanan.
All
Trust me,
right.
that wasn't going to happen. He was as he not a fan of the Jews. I'll just leave it like that. So the fact
Leave it
that
like
they
that.
all, well, yeah, and in fact, believe it or not, a lot of them were very upset. My aunt being one of them, that here she had a chance to vote for a Jew for vice president. She winds up voting for an anti-Semite. So it's like, that bothered her till the day she died. But as far as what you have here with this is concerned, no, I think you're gonna see there's gonna be cheating and it's gonna be hardcore stuff on both sides. Biggest problem that you're gonna have. This is a battle between either the Supreme Court or the House. Because if this goes to the Supreme Court, Trump's going to win. If
That's
this goes
exactly
to
what I'm pointing out.
right, and if this goes to the House, Biden is going to win, and I know it's going to break down into that. There's going to be, and you could already see, And by the way, you've got plants on both sides as well. You've got Republicans that are in the Democrat camp that are trying to cheat and then eventually bring that stuff out. And you've
I
got,
think that the Lincoln
yeah,
Project is a gigantic Trojan horse, and
I
I think
agree
a
with
lot
you.
of those people are going to take down as much progress as they can within the Democratic Party.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There's something about it that just doesn't seem right. And I don't, honestly, I don't see where it is valid anyway. I mean, if it was me, I know where I would concentrate on, and I have a feeling this is where they are concentrating on, and it's just going to be ugly. And as far, the other thing is, technology is backing Biden. You know that there's a lot of money that's coming from the left for very obvious reasons. They can't stand Trump, number one, and I think that life is going to be better under the Democrats in with Silicon Valley.
I think most reasonable people would say that life would be better under Democrats than Republicans.
You live in a red state. You really think those people believe that?
I would say most people in the country. I don't know about most people in North Carolina, but I know most people in the country would say that,
I could.
whether it be like a 51% majority or something like that. But I do think the Democrats have a better track record with most Americans than Republicans do.
Mm, other variables come into play. If you got, I mean, as I said, I got a couple of years on you. Like I do remember the Clinton years were very, very good. Nobody could complain how they were doing under Clinton. Nobody could complain how they were doing under Reagan. If you're going to go back to the 70s, which was a horrific
I'm
decade.
curious of who
Yeah.
you're sampling in that scenario of no one could complain about how they were in the 90s, because I know a lot of people in my family were complaining about everything in the 90s and especially the 80s. But
Let me rephrase that. If you're looking at the majority of the people at those times,
okay,
and because you're right, there's always going to be those that, it's not going to be perfect for everybody. But I mean, I remember in the 80s, because keep in mind, the 70s was a very liberal period. And then all of a sudden it turned very, very conservative in the 80s. And then it sort of went moderate under Clinton. And then you had, Bush with his bullshit. And then you had, Obama, when I guess you could say left center. Um, there's a lot of independent variables that come into play. I mean, if your economy is good, I don't think people would give a damn who is in the White House, Republican, Democrat, whatever, just as long as they're able to stay home, just as long as they're able to feed their families and take care of things. Generally speaking,
I can agree with that. But I think the idea that we're in a pandemic is certainly changing a lot of the playing field here. I mean, we have 60+% of renters in America that cannot pay their rent, that are facing eviction in December. Like, that is a huge deal.
no, I'll tell you what the bigger deal is,
Okay.
and I am in the middle of this. It's worse than you're putting out. It's worse than you realize,
Okay.
and this is the whole reason why. Uh, the interest rates right now. If like, I imagine you don't know what you haven't dealt with a yield curve or anything else like that. The interest rates are at historic lows.
Right.
Okay, when the interest rates are at historic lows, that means it's cheaper to borrow money, cheaper to get a mortgage, and that translates into higher real estate value. So if I can kick you out of your apartment and then either rent it for more or ultimately sell it, it's my advantage to do that.
Right.
And so right now you have a lot of property owners that this is ultimately what they're looking to do. I mean, there's exception to the rules. Like New York City has taken a major bath on this stuff because of what's going on with de Blasio. The actual real estate values in New York City have taken a hit. But if you're looking at, and I'm just going to talk about just here, the suburbs in northern New Jersey, Westchester, Connecticut, Long Island, they probably have popped between 15 and 25% in the last 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
And anybody that's renting in those areas, I'm the landlord, I want them out. So I think it's going to get a lot worse.
I agree. My
A lot
personal
worse.
projection is I think
Mm-hmm.
the eviction moratorium, where whatever kind we have right now,
Mm-hmm.
expires in December. I think if Biden wins, I think Trump is not going to do anything at least until January 21st. I think the lame duck, if Trump knows that he loses and he fails at cheating, I think he's going to use the lame duck to be as destructive as possible for the incoming Biden administration. How do you feel about that?
I'm not really following you. When you're saying lame duck in what way? You talking about economics? Or you
No, lame duck, the last, like, after the election, before the transfer of power.
Okay, if Biden winds up winning, you can guarantee that what do you call it again? Barrett is going to go on the Supreme Court. That's a
I think that's
lock.
a done deal regardless.
Yeah, and he's going to then probably look to pardon all of his buddies, throughout the entire country because he's going to be able to do that. It's
I think that is also going to be. I'm a little bit of a fan of the theory that Trump's going to resign and have Pence pardon him in the last month. I wish that happens just so that I think it would be funny.
why would Pence need to pardon Trump?
The theory is that Trump cannot be indicted. This is like one of the things about the impeachment thing, is that you can't
Okay.
indict a sitting president. So theoretically, he could be, taken to prison for crimes in the next year after he loses office because he's just a
Yeah.
normal citizen. We'll see. I don't expect it,
Yeah.
but again, it's an out there theory that I think it's one of my favorites. I
I
think
mean,
that one's fun.
I hear you, but let me tell you something. Trump is. I'm not going to say that he's brilliant because he's not. I'm not going to say he's stupid either. Sneaky, yes. Does he know how to play games? No question about it. Do I think that that's a possibility? No, I absolutely don't. Look,
Okay.
I could tell you, and I know a few things about him that I found very surprising. I mean, I remember when he funded his casinos in Jersey using junk bonds,
Right.
and this is one. In fact, yeah, you're probably going to love this story. When he opened up the Taj Mahal in '87, and you're in Jersey, so you know what Atlantic City was like.
Yes, I've been there.
Right. In order for the Taj to break even, the Taj had to earn, what the hell was it? The Taj had to earn $1 million a day to break even, which no casino at that time was capable of doing.
Right.
Okay, so what Trump decided to do then was to you would have worse odds at his casino than you would at Caesars or Bally's or the other places.
Right.
There was a corporate bond analyst out of Philadelphia. I forget who this guy's name is, but I remember this. He took a look at this and he was telling his clients, do not buy Taj Mahal bonds because this is a very dangerous, nasty thing. And you're going to get hurt by it. Well, Trump wound up getting wind of this and he got in touch with the guy directly. And it's just like, you take that back and you tell your clients to buy the bonds. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. And Trump wound up getting him fired. And what I never understood about this is how come this story never came out? I mean, if I knew about it then, other people have had to have known about it. Other things that this guy has done, he's made an immense amount of mistakes out there. This prick wound up selling his name to everybody that could, would put up a building.
Yeah.
Trump this, Trump that, whatever. But the one thing I haven't seen where he's been raked over the coals. And I just have a feeling he knows how to protect himself. So no, I don't think anything's
I mean,
going to happen.
I agree with you. I don't think anything's going to happen. I
Yeah.
think Biden is definitely going to be a turn the page presidency more so than holding people accountable. I think that was one of the biggest differences between Bernie and Biden is how they would treat like Trump post Trump. As far as I think Biden is just going to probably say a few mean things and say we got to move on and recover. I think that's going to be likely. But I would obviously I would like to see Trump go to prison for the rest of his life. That's where I want to be at. And if it happens, it happens. So I will agitate for that future personally.
No, I could understand. You're entitled. I could understand.
I'm very entitled. Thank you.
What I don't understand. One thing I will say, you're right about Bernie. I will tell you that if Bernie was running now, I think he would win.
Oh, Bernie would.
At least
it would have been
energy.
a Reagan tier landslide, I believe.
No, he would at least have energy. I mean, I think that Bernie could have won. I think Yang could have won. I think Tulsi could have won because they would have had something.
Okay.
Biden, I'm still at a coin toss. I just there's things about this I just don't buy, but we'll find out in a few weeks.
I think the anti-Trump energy is going to push anyone past the finish line. Personally,
how many undecided do you think are truly out there?
A lot of the polls that I have been seeing, and again, I base a lot of this off of polls, but I use averages. I don't tend to base my opinions off of one poll. I use like the averages. And a lot of polls I've seen have Biden at 51, 52 points. So I don't know if at the undecideds at that point mean much. Like there might be 20% or 15% undecided. And if they all break for Trump, it might still be 51, like 49. You know what I mean?
All right. Let me ask you this. If you were to pull out California, New York, and Texas, what do you think the spread is now?
Because
okay. California is going Biden big. New York is going Biden big. Texas is going Trump big. Well,
I wouldn't be so sure on Texas, but for the thought experiment there, I would say it's probably. I would say it's still relatively similar. Maybe Trump has less of a drop. Like maybe instead of 51 to 39, it's like maybe 50 to 45, something like that, I would
Mm,
say. What do you think?
I think Texas is going to become purple probably within the next decade because you have a lot of people leaving California. Same thing with Arizona, same thing with Nevada. But I don't think you're there yet. Well, Nevada's blue, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Arizona's purplish right now.
I think Arizona's a big toss up at this point.
Right, they're purple. I'm just saying you've got the
Yeah,
mix because you have everybody coming in coming in from California. By the way,
it's
people
like
are leaving.
Florida too.
Florida's a fucked up state. Take my word for it. The Florida is so. Florida is like no other state in the union when it comes to that. I mean, when you think about it, you have a bunch of Yankees down there. You've got rednecks down there. You've got the Cubans down there. You've got a real big mosh, and it's like you never know how those guys are going to go.
And one thing that they all have in common is no one believes in germs.
Florida.
They've got
Or
they've got the highest coronavirus spikes I think the world has ever seen at this point. Let me check that actually.
I thought Brazil was having a serious issue with that. I'm not really sure.
Brazil is for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as like states, Florida recorded 4,000 new cases in the last 24 hours of coronavirus.
Do they cross-reference it with age?
I'm not sure. Texas has 6,000 new cases in the last 24 hours, though. Well, Texas is a lot bigger. That is fair.
No, Texas and Florida. Texas is bigger, but I don't think it's that much bigger, population-wise.
Let me check Florida
Yeah.
population.
I'm just saying because Florida has 29 electoral votes. I think Texas, has 34.
Florida's population is about 21.48 million. Texas is about 30. So
Okay.
about 33%, maybe
Okay.
30% more.
Right, and you got a little bit more land.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I think the world is fucked up. I don't know. Let's just try to wrap this up soon.
Sure.
But what do you think? Like, give me like a 6-month horizon. Like, what do you think we're going to be like in 6 months from now?
You're talking about if a Biden victory or a Trump victory?
Well, whatever you think is more likely.
I truthfully, I see it as a coin toss.
Well, you can give me 2 alternatives then.
No matter who wins, it's going to be a shitstorm.
I can agree.
I can't see if Trump wins, I don't see the Democrats as accepting it as a legit victory. If Biden wins, I don't see the Republicans seeing it as a legit victory.
I also agree.
Yeah, and it's going to be. I just think it's you're going to see a level of ugliness you haven't seen before. I have a feeling you are going to see a lot more people dying. There's going to be a lot more vigilante justice going on out there. I'm not optimistic about it. I mean, I'm really not.
Do you think we're going to get through this, or do you think like societal collapse is incoming?
Eventually, look. If you were to take a look at the riots in like 1967, yeah, Newark, New Jersey. I mean, they essentially went into a full-blown depression for about 20, 30 years. I mean, Detroit is still going through that depression right now. I mean, what's really sad about Detroit, a house in Detroit is worth less in 2020 than it was worth in 1971.
And that accounts for inflation? Or
I'm
like
talking dollar price.
Okay, so
if it was,
even with inflation, it's still.
If it cost you $50,000 in 1971, it's probably worth about $35,000 in 2020. That's how bad they took a hit. And you could say Youngstown, stupid. I mean, all that. I was a mortgagist for a while, but those were two isolated areas. Eventually, people snap back. If you took a look at the Rodney King situation, that was actually a little bit quicker and easier, and people recovered. This, I think, is just way uglier. Because
I think we're now officially in like the most prolonged civil rights movement in American history now. Like as far as like just sheer amount of days that people have been demonstrating, like all that kind of stuff. And then also, I do think that there is like this kind of energy is just in maybe not every single city, but like every major city You've got a contingent of people that are willing to go out and make their voices heard.
Can I ask you something? If
Sure.
Trump wins and all of a sudden he's going to continue to deputize local police, and now you're talking about 5, 10, 15-year prison sentences handed out, sending these guys to Leavenworth. You don't think that's going to make an impact on BLM, Antifa, whoever is going to be rioting? Because I
I
think
think
it's
that's
going
going
to
to
shut
make
it
an
down.
impact. I think that that's not going to make the impact that the Trump administration would like. I think that there's a lot of people that are willing to go to prison for that extended period of time for what they believe. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because I know a lot of people, I'm 24, right? But I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people younger than me are
Mm-hmm.
much more radical than I am. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that are like 16, 17, 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
That like are 1000% willing because they've like got no job. There's a pandemic. They can't go out, right? Like they see their friends and family getting shot and killed by cops. That's something that happens to a lot of people. They've seen it online, like the viral social media stuff. There's a lot of people that feel like there is no future for them and that are willing to do what they feel like is correct in this instance. Like if you've got a job, if you've got a family, if you've got kids, you're less
Right.
likely to go out there and do something that would get you arrested. If you don't have a job, if you don't have a house, if you don't have kids, you are like 18 years old, fuck it. And I think that that's the mentality of a lot of people right now.
You know the guy, who was it? In Portland, the 118-year-old that threw the IED at the federal building.
Right?
Okay, and I am going to guess he's getting at least 10 years in a federal. You don't think that if a few of those guys get locked away, it's not going to make an impact on other people?
It will make an impact. Like there will be an impact, but I'm not sure if it's going to disperse the entire movement. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very skeptical of that. I think it will make an impact. There will be a harsh resistance. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people's lives will be ruined. And
Right.
I think that so far what we've seen is we've seen kind of a feedback loop effect, whereas when police will shoot at protesters, more people will show up to protest the next day. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's something. Yes, eventually you run out of people to arrest. If that's the road that they're going to go down, like just arrest everybody, send them all to prison, then at that point that's just fascist rule. And are they willing to take that last step? I'm not sure. I don't know.
They've done this before. I mean, once again, if you go back to the late '60s, early '70s, the Weather Underground. I forget their name. I think it was called the Weather Underground, Black Panthers, and stuff. Also radical, and it's just like the minute they lock these guys up, like I don't know if you're familiar with Patricia Hearst, what her whole thing was back in '73, '74.
Not familiar?
Okay, but when they when they started knocking these guys down, you just noticed there was a big decline. Now, as I said, this is 50 years ago. I don't know what it's going to be today.
I think the big thing is the
Yeah,
economic future of the people today versus 50 years ago.
but you see, this is what I don't understand. I think you guys have you have an advantage that I could tell you growing up did not have. Here's the one thing I don't. And by the way, just to fill you in, okay. I have two sons that are 2 and 4 years younger than you.
Okay.
And the one thing that I've been pushing with them,
You should
because
tell them to subscribe to me.
they already have. The one thing I've been pushing with them is code. Code. I mean, what I can't figure out is, and I could tell you, I've seen what if and this is of course if you got the aptitude, but you can get a 6-figure a year job within 18 months if you bust your balls. Why not do it? I'm just saying, I never had that opportunity. I mean, I went finance, but what I'm seeing now with the programming, there's a major shortage. To me, the only two areas you can go into would be either coding or healthcare. And healthcare could be a pain in the ass, but all I'm saying is back that you never had this opportunity. As somebody that was a teenager in the '70s, I could tell you those opportunities were not there. It was
So
tough to get a job at Burger King. I mean, it was different, and I don't understand why people or why young kids are not doing that as much as.
well, learning to code might seem like a good move, but where do you learn?
There's enough stuff online. There are YouTube videos.
A lot of people that are in this, like, we don't have like, I have steady internet connection because I'm lucky, but we're talking about, like, there's like at least half of Americans that don't have a quick internet connection at home. They like have to go to the Walmart parking lot or go to Starbucks parking lot or go to the library to use the internet,
Okay,
especially in a lot of rural states.
okay. I can't speak with them, but if you're looking at the product, like, let me just say, I don't think you're going to have a problem with technology in Portland, Seattle, and New York.
I don't think so either.
Right. And I could tell you, I'm actually doing or getting into programming now. I mean, I'm going into Python, and I also saw that there was a big problem with COBOL because it turns out that COBOL is a 60-year-old programming language, but it is so entrenched in the Department of Defense, state governments, banking, et cetera. There are more lines of COBOL run every day than there are Google searches. And everybody that's a COBOL program is ready to retire. So it's just like, that seems to me, where you want to go. Anyway, make a long story short, I'm pushing the kids to go in that direction. And maybe if you don't have the head for it, okay, fine. But I know if you're a half-ass programmer, you could at least do 50, 75 grand a year. I mean, you got to move with the times. Look, I started working Wall Street in 1985. Okay. And if I did not adapt between 85, 90, 95, 2000, et cetera, if I did not adapt, then yeah, I would be out. But that was the thing. You constantly had to adjust and adapt. I would just think at at a young age, this is what you would want. This is what you'd want to do. I mean, to me, I see where you have more opportunity, at least more opportunity than we ever had. If you were into computers back then, you were looked at as sort of a dreamer, sort of like in the Star Trek, Star Wars kind of thing. Whereas today, hell, you could pick this stuff up. You could do extraordinarily well. I mean, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but
I think you're looking at this. I think you're making an analysis of this, assuming that everyone has the same capabilities that you do or like your family does. Like in the sense of like they can just look it up online and they can learn all this stuff. Like a
oh
lot of
no no no
people,
no no no
like,
no no. Whoa. I got to
okay,
stop you there. No,
all right,
because I
stop
could
me.
tell you when I first looked at this, did this make sense to me? The answer is no.
Okay.
It didn't make any sense to me. But then eventually it started, clicking in. It's like, okay, this means this, that means that, and then eventually it got hardwired. It's like, oh, okay, that's what this is. Okay, then that's what that is. Fine. And by the way, I mean, I am a novice at this stage. So, I've got a ways to go. Um, but at least, trying. I mean, just like, look, I've listened to you a couple of times. Okay, you got a brain in your head. It's just like, have you ever looked at it? Have some of these other people? It's like, I see you like talking about politics. You like talking about, the interesting stuff. Have you ever looked at going into this direction?
What,
Because
coding or?
coding, programming, something to do with it. I don't care if it's
I mean,
computer.
I play video games. I've done coding in video games before, like as far
Oh,
as that's concerned.
okay. So
But
you've
it's
looked
not
at
like
JavaScript and all that stuff.
I've done Java. I've
Okay.
done some Python stuff. I wrote a
Okay.
few scripts in C, but like nothing, extensive. I'm not like a pro. I couldn't replicate it now because that was a couple years ago. But I
Okay.
mean, I'm familiar. Like if I wanted to, and this was like, if my goal was to like make a career for myself,
Hmm.
yes, I probably could and would learn
Okay.
how to do that kind of stuff. Um, but instead, I'm doing here like shitting out stupid talk shows. Instead, that's what I'm spending my time on. So, you
Is your
know,
channel growing?
it's growing. It's profitable.
And what do you have? You have it on YouTube. You've got Twitter. You've got Instagram. All the other
I
stuff.
don't I don't have I have Twitter, I have YouTube. That's about it. I should probably, I've been meaning to put my podcast on iTunes and stuff, but I'm too lazy to make an account, to be
Just
honest
a
with you.
just a question for you, because I know nothing about this, but you put out content, advertisers see your show as something that they want to advertise on.
Well,
So that's where you make your money, right?
I just purely go from the YouTube algorithm. So I don't have any advertisers that I have a personal relationship. That's all just YouTube.
Okay, but if I'm not mistaken, if you use foul language, does that start demonetizing you?
Yes, I make less money. Like if I were to stop swearing, I would probably
Okay,
make 2 times the dollars that I make now. But
really?
yes, it is a big deal.
Huh.
But
Okay.
I just like swearing too much. I don't know. Sometimes if I'm doing like a segment, I'll try to lean it back a little bit. Like, every now and then, if Biden does like a wacky thing, like how the right wing will love to like do these like Biden forgot how to speak English thing. I will specifically not curse when I cover that because I know
Hmm.
the right's going to find that, and I know I'm going to get like 20,000 views, and I know I'm going to make a lot of money. But I mean, at the same time, I value being a real person, and real people swear a lot, at least in poor people that I know. Like, I know most poor people will say fuck all the time.
True. This is very true.
And that's my grift. I grift on poor people. I know it's not a very profitable grift, but patreon.com/cyberman531. Hit me up today. Give me your
Hey,
money.
you do what you need to do. Totally get that. As I said, I was sort of curious. And how long
Yeah.
have you had this show on for?
This show I've been doing for a year now.
Gotcha. And how long did it take you to get from like 0 to 1,000 views? Like 0 to 1,000 subscribers?
Well, I've been on YouTube for a long time.
Okay.
But in the last year, I used to just do video game stuff. So I went
Okay.
from about 3,000 subs to I think I have like 7,500 now. So more than
Yeah.
double in the last year as opposed to all the other years combined before that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay. Well, it was a very interesting, informative conversation. Appreciate it. Best of
Yeah,
luck to you and all
for
that. And
sure. I like that you watch my show. I like that you tell your kids to watch my show. You can tell them that you were on my show. I'm sure that will get you some cool dad points. Um, maybe, maybe not.
yeah,
I'm
I
not
would
sure.
think so.
You would think so? Okay.
Oh,
Are
I
they
would
gonna
think so.
watch this whole thing? You think they're gonna watch this?
Oh, I think that they're going to bust my balls about it and show it to
Okay.
all their friends. So yeah, I would. I know I would do that.
Okay. So you would do it. So what you're saying is you're endorsing them behaving in that way?
No question about it.
Okay.
You
All
try.
right.
Let me tell you this: you try to get through this world with no personality. See how far you're going to get. Either you
I
got to be a
I
rocket
try to have a
scientist,
personality.
right? Either you're a rocket scientist or you're going to be dead. You personality will go a long, long way. And actually, one thing besides coding, and last peril of wisdom I could throw your way. One skill that also will always work, no matter what year it is: sales. You have to know how to sell, whether or not it's a show or whatever
I
content.
sell myself on a daily basis.
Yes, you do. It's the same thing. Sales is sales.
Absolutely.
Sales is sales. Okay, Andrea, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
If you ever feel the need to correct my language when it comes to Israel Palestine, feel free to hop on again.
no, let me tell you, I've already had a field day with this with a lot of people. Because this, I mean, and I know that's not your forte. I mean, I just eat this stuff up like crazy. I mean,
Eat it up. Like for breakfast, is this like,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
is it in
I
your
mean, look,
bloodstream? Are your arteries filled with this?
you could say that,
Okay.
because the one thing that always bothered me, and I always heard this from the Palestinians. There was an event in the 1940s. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Deir Yassin.
I am not.
Deir Yassin was a case. I think it was the Stern gang that went into a Palestinian village, and they wound up executing, I don't know, approximately 120 Palestinian civilians.
That's
It's a
no good.
tragedy, horror show. Okay, not defending that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I find hypocritical, though, if you were to look at Hebron 1929, where Palestinians or Arabs or whatever you want to call them were raping young women in front of their families, put a man in an oven and baked him to death, etc. And if you're not going to, have this and this, and okay, there's a little bit of a balance here. And this is the one thing that I see where it's just like, it would almost be the same thing as if I was to go over World War II with you, and I was to say that,
Right?
all the Soviets shot guns, bullets at the Germans, and they bombed the Germans, and they did this to the Germans. I mean, yeah, I could make it sound like, gee, those mean Soviets, and did this to the innocent German people. This is what I see the narrative as being sold as.
Well, I don't know. My position is just all violence is bad. And I definitely need to do more reading on situations in the Middle East. That's definitely on my list of things to do. Because being able to understand the history of things makes it a lot easier to de-escalate things, at least in my
This will never
experience.
be. Let me ask you: Do you have English or Irish blood in you?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Reason I say that, if you take a look at the situation in Northern Ireland, how many centuries did the violence go on there? I mean, for this stuff to end, good luck.
I don't think this is something that will happen in my lifetime. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
not yours as well, unless you have other plans to live longer than me. But as of this moment, I hope to outlive you. I don't think it'll happen in my time,
Okay,
right? But it's something to strive for. I think that we should always be pushing to de-escalate things. I think that that should be the goal of our species, to be honest with you.
I agree, but it's always the fanatics that have the last say. And unfortunately, I don't see where that's going to end. I could tell you over there, if you ever deal with any of these buckaroos in the settlements, those people are fanatic nuts. If you ever deal with any of the ones that are the Arabs that are, Allah's going to do this and Allah's going to do that. And unfortunately, that is what's driving this. The normal people, they don't have much say.
That may
And
be true.
unfortunately,
That may be
yeah.
true. And
And
as you said, fanatics get the last say. So I'll let you say the last thing, and then we'll end.
let's end it. You have yourself a great Saturday, and
It's
hopefully we'll speak
Saturday?
again.
What?
Is it today Saturday? Yeah,
It
Saturday.
might be. Holy shit. Holy
Yeah.
fuck. All right.
Yeah, I
All
got to
right.
finish this house up. Okay.
Y'all
Sounds
have a
good.
good one. Thanks for popping on. I appreciate the dialogue. See
Likewise.
ya.
Take care now. Bye.
You can just click off whenever you want.